Hi, this is Robert Colquhoun, Director of International Campaigns.
Por la vida en Colombia está lleno de frutos.
Die schlossen und manche dann sagen, ja, es ist nicht mehr so.
People start saying that, if your thoughts fall foul of the popular opinion, that they're somehow criminal.
Mi hija ha decidido no abortar.
Our freedom in a democracy, in our open society, begins with the freedom of speech.
Ante todo, los pilares de 40 días, ¿no? La oración, el ayuno, la yoga.
So sometimes it's just a little thing that we have to do. So
también dignidad, que son creados también por
But
Dios.
beyond what we say, anything we do at 40 Days for Life, anything we say to defend the unborn, we do with love.
Los bebés no tienen que ser abortados de una madre.
40 Days for Life International Podcast.
El podcast de 40 días por la vida internacional.
Hi, this is Robert Colquhoun, Director of International Campaigns, and welcome back to the 40 Days for Life International podcast. We've had a great interviews with Portugal recently. We've been going through the international leaders of 40 Days for Life in different countries across the world. Some fascinating stories. People who've been doing this campaign for 10 years and also people who've just started as well. And we're just so blessed to hear so many grace-filled stories from the grassroots. And I am honoured today to have Filip and Zosia from Poland, who have just started their first ever 40 Days for Life campaign. We had two epic events in Poland this 2023 last year. And firstly, in Krakow, we had an international conference with about 200 to 250 delegates. We heard some incredible testimonies of how Poland has retained pro-life laws and the strategy, the campaigning of pro-life activists in the midst of a Catholic country retaining its values. Absolutely fascinating. And we're going to hear from Filip and Zosia the latest from Poland and what's happening politically there, as also how they got a first 40 Days for Life campaign started there. We also had a workshop in Warsaw, the capital of Poland, where we shared the mission of 40 Days, met with prominent pro-life leaders. In addition to that, there was an epic March for Life in Warsaw, and so brilliant to see the pro-life movement in force in the capital there. Despite the fact they have pro-life laws, they're still getting thousands of people on the streets to witness for life. So it's so exciting interviewing people on the front line who are doing God's work, and also pioneering new efforts, starting something from scratch, which has been a success in other countries. So it is Filip Lapinski and Zosia Rogala. Filip, how are you today? You're also working with the Education and Pro-Life movement as well, and you've helped start 40 Days for Life in Poland. This is the first time I've interviewed two people at once, so it's gonna test my interviewing skills and also the dialogue as well. But we've got lots to talk about today and a lot of fun mentioning pro-life movement in Poland. Filip, how are you today? Tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us about your role in the pro-life movement in Poland.
Thank you very much, Robert, for the opportunity to talk with you and to share our story with other people who subscribe and who watch 40 Days for Life channel. Well, yeah, my name is Filip Lapinski. I am a pro-lifer, but I am a pro-lifer because I am a Christian. And I am a Christian, I am a Catholic Christian for, I would say, for only 2 years. And earlier, I was a Protestant Christian. I converted to Roman Catholic Church 2 years ago. So my pro-life attitude was developing slowly over time. And with each year, I was more and more convinced with how important it is. So now I'm just a pro-lifer that is active in a social sphere, but I'm also working in the Foundation Poland the Great project, where I'm responsible for educational projects. And we are creating educational programs for young leaders. We also want to reach the younger Polish generation, those who attend schools, high schools, or primary schools, with the message of traditional values, of patriotism, and and that would be about me.
Awesome, Filip. It's great to have you on here. And you're a new Catholic full of zeal. I became a Catholic 20 years ago, and I had so much zeal when I first became a Catholic. It was kind of off the charts. So it's nice to see a young person with passion, with enthusiasm. So without further ado, Zosia, Rogala, tell us a little bit about yourself. You've been one of the volunteers for 40 Days for Life, and you've been pivotal on getting things started for the first ever campaign in Warsaw.
Hello, great to be here. Well, personally or professionally, I'm nowhere near pro-life. I am a teacher. However, pro-life has been always very important for me. First time when we had kind of a pro-abortion marches or protests in Poland in 2016, I realized something was going off. And I realized that there was a big social tension about it. And I found myself having no arguments for my position. So that was a very distressing situation, because many of my friends kind of asked me to say, why do you still believe in the Catholic Church? Why are you still believing in this? If they propose this pro-life ideas, and I couldn't find the good answers. That's how it started for me. So then I went on YouTube. I started to read and learn more, and I realized there is a lot more information in English language available than in Polish. Only later on, I understood why actually this is so important for me. Because having spoken with my grandma and my dad, I realized that abortion has been present in my family, and I could see how difficult it was, how much pain it causes, but also how great it is when abortion do not happen, and someone like my dad, who was about to be aborted, is being born, and hence also my brother and I, and the rest of our family. So this is on one hand kind of an intellectual interest, but on the other hand, very real, very personal one. I am here because of the pro-life choice of my grandma.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. So this isn't just an abstract debate for you. This is something really deeply personal that, it's something that could have affected your family, that you wouldn't exist if, for example, if you had pro-abortion laws in your country, or if somebody made a decision down your family tree, your family line. So, this brings the debate to be real rather than abstract and philosophical, something deeply personal, but really, really important. And that's so beautiful, your testimony. It's knowing that your family could have, very nearly was deeply affected by this issue. It's and we're always trying to make the emotional connection with abortion, of saying, this isn't just an abstract choice like which cereal to buy in the supermarket. This is something that affects people's lives at a very deep level, that wounds people, that wounds families. And this is what the debate's all about, and that we're here to heal, to hope, to bring hope, and to bring love, and this is the heart of the pro-life movement. The more that we can communicate that, the better. Yeah. And so was it when the abortion debate was raging in Poland, that's how you first got involved in the pro-life movement, Zosia?
No. Well, yeah. The first time I had the realization that for some reason this is important for me, and I have no arguments, so I started to educate myself. Later on, I discovered how important it is. If I can share another part of the story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Personal, I'd say, like, one of my grandmas chose life, and this time in the communist Poland, abortion was legal and was encouraged. So only later on, when we got rid of communism, abortion was delegalized because of a huge effort of many people. However, the other grandma unfortunately went through an abortion. So I had a chance to talk to her when she was elderly, and I have never seen someone in such regret. And I thought, this is the most painful thing you can do to a woman, for her to spend her late years being 75, 80, thinking about what life would be, how much life would be different if someone told me not to do that, if it was illegal. She literally looked into my eyes and said, why no one told me? Church was not speaking about it. Family was not speaking about it. Doctors were not speaking about it. I didn't know it was wrong. I know only now, and I cannot undo it. I think this was the moment when I realized, okay, not speaking about it is not a choice, because this is something that destroys women as well, and it's absolutely unfair to put them in the position of as my grandma was, being very young in a difficult situation, and not give them this piece of information. Well, it can be really painful later on in life.
It's really beautiful, your personal testimony, and like, wow, you just bring this debate to life straight away, you know. And it's some of our best leaders are post-abortive women and people who've been affected by abortion, and you know, we can channel those passions and enthusiasm into serving others. And some of the best stories in Portugal last week, I heard how one of the mums who chose life outside the abortion centre, she went on to go and help another person who's in a similar situation to them. So hearing your family testimony of your relatives, you know, how deeply affected they are, and knowing what's at stake. But what's so amazing about Poland is, you know, you look at Europe and it's secular, it's decadent, it's this Western Europe, we've lost our values, but you have managed to retain the pro-life laws largely, pretty much 100%. Incredible, you know. I mean, how, Filip, I mean, tell us a bit about the history of Poland, and, you know, also about the abortion laws and just kind of the context of the country. That would be fantastic. You had communism there. But now you've managed to retain the pro-life laws through some phenomenal activism, and now that's under threat because the government is, from my understanding, is no longer as pro-life as it was. You've got a new government, so you think everything's okay, and you know, and there's laws, and then there's also people who've had abortions as well. That's always going to happen. So, you know, there's always pro-life work to do. So tell us a bit about the context of Poland and just the lay of the land as things are.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we could say that the story of modern Polish abortion begins before the war, where abortion was somehow widespread, even though there were legal restrictions on it. But most importantly, after the war, the communist government introduced abortion on demand, as Zosia has said. So throughout many decades, we had abortion on demand, and as a result, also the social attitude towards abortion was heavily acceptable. It was seen as something acceptable, as something that can be just done by many people, and the church was not very confrontational about it as well. But when Poland regained its independence, we actually began this discussion anew. And there was a whole discussion about how the law should look like, because there were many different opinions and many different sides that wanted to shape the law according to their own opinion. But eventually, we had a law that abortion was illegal on demand, but it was still legal in three cases: in the case of disability of a child, in the case of incest or rape, or in the case of danger for women's health or life. And this law was in power for most of modern Poland's history, from the 90s up to 2020, I believe. And then in 2020, Polish Constitutional Tribunal has issued a verdict which claimed that one of these three clauses, the clause that allowed an abortion in case of a child's disability, was not constitutional. So as a result, abortion was limited even further actually the number of abortions dropped after the verdict was published, dropped by 90%. So there used to be around 1,000 legal abortions in Poland per year annually, and after the verdict we had about 100, and up to this day we still have about 100 legal abortions in Poland annually, maybe a little more than that, but it's still a very small number. And of course, this event sparked huge protests from the left, from the liberals, the protests that Zosia has mentioned. So this was also the moment where both of us were just witnesses of this outrage. And my friends, I remember that moment because I was in my home with COVID. I couldn't get out, but my friends were standing and blocking the churches from angry mob that wanted to enter the churches and desecrate them.
Wow.
And there were even riots on the streets. My friends were like holding hands together at the entrance of the church in the center of Warsaw, and the mob was trying to storm in. And fortunately, they held the line. And I regretted that I couldn't be there. But it was there were a lot of emotions, and many churches were vandalized these 3 years ago. And from then, the attitude of Polish society started shifting towards acceptance of abortion. But still, I would say that in case of a referendum, for example, the new government sometimes suggests that there may be a referendum in the future about the abortion laws. And the referendum could go, I think, either way. We don't really know.
So quite a lot of drama to hear the churches, people standing, holding the line, all these marches all over the country. Certainly, the issues taking a national prominence. You've got a massive national debate on your hands. And Zosia, tell us about the government now. What's happening with the government now, and how do you interpret and see the situation kind of with this new government? What's going to happen? What's your prediction analysis of the current status quo?
I cannot say too much about the current government.
Okay.
I would call it this my field of expertise.
No problem.
But quite honestly, I think that what happens in Poland is usually very much influenced by what happens in the West.
Okay.
So, first of all, politics, I believe, is downstream of culture.
Mm-hmm.
Hence, if culture is shifting towards some set of ideas or the other, politics naturally follows. That's why we need to engage with culture, and that would be also, in my opinion, the maybe an error a little bit that the pro-life movement made in Poland, to believe that it's enough to just engage in law, in politics, and just not engage too much into culture. And secondly, obviously, pro-abortion movements are not local, they are international. There is a lot of a big business around it, and it's and this pro-abortion, pro-death culture permeates in general around the globe. So it would be very difficult to keep one country completely different. Polish people look abroad, Polish people consume Western culture, consume Netflix and TikTok if they are young, etc. So that's a very difficult, in a way, unfair fight if we look at it on simply humane level. Therefore, I believe this day or another, this government or another will try to follow with pro-abortion laws, pro-death laws, because it's not only pro-abortion. Later on, it involves also euthanasia and other things. So probably sooner than later in our situation right now, but that's why we are also happy to have started, in a way, to have started this movement, somewhat getting prepared, and hopefully being a little bit more ready than we could have been otherwise.
Now, I'm guessing that neither of you remember personally the fall of communism is probably a bit before your time, or maybe it's your parents' generation. I mean, I was at school, I was at primary school when the Berlin Wall fell down, and I was like 7 years old and put up my hand and I knew what was going on in the news and said to the teacher that was the day that the Berlin Wall fell down. So I'm guessing this is the older generation. And is it that the younger generation has no memory of this sort of former era, or is it kind of still embedded in the national conscious psyche of the country? Is it the young people have forgotten that, and they've forgotten sort of, in our country, that people have forgotten what high inflation looked like in the 1970s? The younger generation don't remember that. But Filip, do you think communism is still strongly in the sort of national sort of memory, or the young people today just are oblivious to, challenges of a similar nature coming through these days?
I think it's a very good observation.
Yeah.
The remembrance of communism is just a matter of an older generation, and from the perspective of those of our age or younger, we were born in a free country that was getting wealthy very quickly, and that was getting integrated into European and Western structures. So for many of our contemporaries, either politically or culturally, the West serves as the point of reference, as the place we want to be in and we want to emulate. Many of our colleagues think that way, and of course there is a growing awareness that there are many things that went wrong in the West, not just in case of abortion, but also in many other situations and in many other aspects. But this awareness grows, I would say, slowly, and we still have a globalized culture that influences the youngest generation very much. So for them, the argument about the European standards concerning abortion or the Western standards concerning bioethical questions in general is still very appealing, even though this is the same standard in this aspect that the communist government had. But this point of reference, the communist government as a point of reference, is not that important in comparison to contemporary Western Europe. So I would say that Polish young people do not want to follow communist government from the past, but they want to follow the liberal Western Europeans because they see them as the pinnacle of civilization.
So in the midst of all these challenges, you've got challenges of government, challenges of culture, of younger generation coming through, not sharing the conservative values. Zosia, you started a 40 days campaign, and how has that gone? You've started something from scratch, and you've been in the public square. And how did the first campaign go in Warsaw, and what was it like setting it up?
Maybe I'll start from setting it up.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be possible for me to set it up on my own.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go for it. But the one thing I could go for was to set up a small group of friends who would start to meet up and discuss what we see in the society. So actually, our pro-life movement didn't start from a great dream to change society. It started from coincidental or maybe providential meeting outside the Church of Our Lady on June 24, 2021, I think, which is the date of 22, yes, which is the date of Roe v. Wade decision being overturned. We met in front of the church with Filip, and we were just so happy and so grateful to have the chance to see such a great victory in our lives. So many people worked for that for years, and they didn't have a chance to see it, while we haven't had done anything yet, and we had a privilege to see it and to enjoy it. So the first moment wasn't to set up something. Wasn't something great, huge. We never thought it was going to have any kind of importance. We just meet up and decided, well, if God gives us a chance to see something beautiful, we should be grateful. We offered a mass of Thanksgiving, and then we started to meet up in a small group of friends that slowly start to grow, step by step, start to grow. Young people that had the pro-life ideas, had a similar, I'd say, vibe. So we're joyful, just enjoy company. And it took us about a year to form such a group. And in the meantime, I happened to be invited to your conference in Krakow, January, I believe, this year. And that's how we learned about 40 Days for Life. So it would be maybe difficult for me to start a campaign, but it wouldn't difficult to just invite a few friends for a coffee or a beer for admirers and discuss what do we see in the society and how can we get involved. And it started to grow. Then I was able to say, well, with this group of friends, I am actually able to invite people like you and Pamela and other 40 Days for Life leaders to Warsaw to organize small workshop. We'll see where it takes us. That's how it all started.
That's great. So it's like the apostles, you know, the disciples and a small group of friends. And Filip, how do you remember that time? And how did you see your first campaign go? And what were some of the spiritual fruits that you witnessed? And was it surprising? What was unique about your campaign?
Yeah, I just want to add in the beginning that even though Poland serves as an example of pro-life legal order, I think the United States serves as the example of pro-life movement and the level of its organization. So we were inspired by it. And when we started 40 Days for Life this autumn, we chose one of the most well-known places in Warsaw, which is very close to the campus of University of Warsaw, very close to the presidential palace. And we were just standing at the street. We had some fears before we started concerning the reactions of the people. We knew that there could be some people that we know from the university that will come by and they will see us in a different role. Or some other people that we know that are definitely not pro-life. Or we were afraid of some reactions that some people may be aggressive or else. But once we started, we encountered, I would say we encountered a different reaction, because most of the interactions we had with the people who came by or just wanted to talk were positive. We felt the positive attitude, the favorable attitude of the policemen who were protecting our vigil. And we had the opportunity to talk with people who were either Catholic or Protestant or non-believers. We had an interesting story of a young man who apostatized from the church many years ago and lived very close by. And he visited us, our vigil, almost daily, wanted to talk with us. And even though he did not want to pray with us, he said that he will keep his eye on us in case we are in danger. Then he will be able to intervene. He was, a tough guy with a difficult past, but he wanted to participate in a way. He wanted to talk with us and he wanted to protect us, because he said that he's also pro-life. So he believes that this cause is important. So we even had people who were non-believing and who came and said that they support us. Very rarely we could encounter situations where someone, either young or old, would come to us and shout something aggressively. For example, saying that this will be to no avail. You will achieve nothing by these prayers. It's too late. It's no longer the Middle Ages or something like that. But it was very rare, and I think that even in these words, we saw the helplessness of those who oppose us, and we actually felt. I think I may say that we felt great during the vigil, during prayers. We felt peace, we felt enthusiasm, and we felt hope, even though sometimes there was a lot of rain or it was very cold, but we still had our blankets, we had our lights, our umbrellas, and we were praying, and I believe it was very beneficial for us, but also for other people who witnessed.
That's awesome. And I love the story of the fear of worrying about seeing some university students and, what if somebody sees me here? And everyone's afraid at the beginning. And it's like, stepping out in faith. And one of my most favorite parts of 40 Days is the encounters that you have with people in the street, the grace-filled encounters of passers-by, even those that disagree with us. We need to be there for those who disagree with us the most. And the witness that we show, people might disagree with our views, but they can admire the way we're going about manifesting, a public presence. And we're peaceful and we're prayerful. We're not there to hit people over the head with the Bible. And it's where the rubber meets the road. You engage with public society, and there's hundreds of people that you can witness to, and all sorts of funny stories of individuals, encounters. Some of the most hostile people are actually the best encounters that you can have. And Zosia, how did you feel with talking with members of the public, and what were some of the highlights, the best experiences from your first campaign?
For me, definitely, I felt that would be a personal thing again, that my heart grew stronger, bigger.
Yeah.
I'm not a particularly courageous person, honestly. I'm quite agreeable. I really like nice atmosphere, and I don't enjoy engaging in debate with disagreeing views. And unfortunately, this happened to be a tough issue to discuss. So I was very hesitant to join. When I heard that some friends from my group decided to go for it with 40 Days, I was like, oh no. Now I need to go to the streets. That's a problem. But then I realized two things. First of all, very often when we see things unfolding in front of our eyes, we see changes in politics, we see changes in the culture, we feel, or at least I feel, kind of hopeless, like not really much can be done by me. And there is a tension between an urge to some kind of activism to change something, and at the same time this feeling like, well, any activism I can take is not going to change too much. And then when I went to these 2 hours, we had like 2 hours prayer vigils in this central square in Warsaw. I felt like this is finally the time when I can be at peace. I don't need to, my job here is not to run in my head all the plans or everything. Like usually we are in such a rush right now that this was time of, in a way, rest, because I knew like this time is dedicated. Like the best thing I can do is to pray the rosary, to meditate a word of God, maybe to engage in some nice conversation. So that was something that brought me surprisingly a lot of peace. And at the same time, I remembered a saying that one professor of mine told me once, that, heart is also a muscle, so you need to train it. And in a sense, like, if you want to have a great heart, like, well, you need to go to the gym and train it. And this was kind of a gym for me to feel like, okay, this muscle is getting a little bit stronger day by day.
That's awesome. I love it. The heart is a muscle. You've got to train it. I mean, absolutely fantastic. And that's just what we're doing. With prayer, everything is possible, and we need to train, and we need to practice, and through that we grow in the virtues. And Filip, what gives you a sense of hope with the pro-life movement in Poland? What you've mentioned lots of inspiring stories of meeting people in the streets and the challenges of the status quo there, but what gives you a sense of hope with doing a 40 days campaign, seeing your country where things are at the moment? What's your perspective on the pro-life movement in Poland? Where are things? And you also tell us a bit about the foundation and educational work that you're doing too.
I believe that 40 Days for Life in Poland would perform a very specific and very needed function, which means our pro-life movement in Poland is very often associated with people who very strongly advocate against abortion, but by very strongly, I also mean very aggressively, and who appeal only to the legal solutions, so that it sometimes strengthens the image that pro-lifers actually just want to enforce people to do something or not to do something. And of course, it's so much more than that. Of course, we want to promote a positive vision of life, of motherhood, of being a father as well, of the family, of embracing life, and all these positive images need to be put at the front of the pro-life movement in Poland, so that the people who tend to be somehow in the center may be swayed to pro-life side, may start to feel sympathy towards pro-life cause again, because right now the people who are in the center are probably pushed towards the pro-choice movement. So in other words, we want to give a positive, radiant face to the pro-life movement, and 40 Days for Life, I believe, performs that function, because we peacefully pray, we peacefully demonstrate, but it's not directed against anyone. It's mainly for the value of life, and we just pray. We do not try to force anyone. We do not even try to change the law in other ways other than prayer. Of course, we want the law to be changed. We want the law to protect life. It's obvious. But we pray for it because we pray, because we want Polish people not just not to have access to legal abortion, but we want them not to want any abortion. We want abortion to be unthinkable instead of just illegal. So I believe that this gives us a very special place in the landscape of the pro-life movement, and all other initiatives with a very similar character. We cooperated with priest Tomasz Kancelarczyk from one of the Polish towns, who for many years works for single mothers, works for orphans, for kids who need help. So people like him show that being pro-life means loving life and not just hating murder, but loving life. That's the most important thing.
That is awesome. And I just love, we've got a unique mission. It's something of benefit for the pro-life movement in Poland. And what you've achieved in Poland has been absolutely remarkable. I mean, just absolutely mind-blowing, to come to this conference and to be in a country where the pro-life movement's had such a huge impact. In the UK, we're persecuted for our views. We've just got thought crimes this year. You can't stand legally outside an abortion clinic now because the abortion lobby have introduced all these crazy laws that infringe freedom of thought, freedom of assembly, freedom of speech. So it's crazy. And you guys at the other end of the spectrum, just like the United States. And it's absolutely phenomenal to see the pro-life movement functioning well, having strong organizations, having the kind of vision that you've just articulated of abortion being unthinkable, but then actually seeing that mission really being accomplished in, the legal and the political sphere. For me, it's just like, wow, I never thought this was even possible, just like the Roe versus Wade decision was just, absolutely, well, I never thought that would happen. Just this amazing moment, the pinnacle in the history of the pro-life movement. So, you know, wow, it's great. And to get a national movement going, this is all up for grabs now. You've taken the first baby steps, and now the next step is to spread the movement. And I'm sure, you know, the swing back, you've had hundreds of pro-abortion marches all over the country. The opposition is, you know, well organized, well funded, probably from abroad. They're just waiting to sort of dig their claws into the laws and the culture of your country. But Zosia, what message do you have for 40 Days for Life leaders and volunteers? What message, you know, what's unique about Poland that you can bring? You've spoken really beautifully, hearing from both of you about abortion being unthinkable, about the heart being a muscle to train. What message do you have for other leaders and volunteers in different countries?
Well, if I am to say something unique about Poland, I would say if you look at the abbreviation of our country, the one, for example, that you have at the website is .pl. So Poland is PL, and it's also pro-life. So we really need to, you see it, like, if we stop being pro-life as Poland, we will lose our identity. So it's really important. But a message that I would say personally is, well, again, it's not against someone as pro-choice, pro-death movement is telling us all the time. It's being pro-life is not against women. Being pro-life ultimately speaks about what is the answer that we as a person and as a society give to this crucial question of life, which is suffering. Suffering is inevitable in life. It comes as part of human existence, it's part of human experience. And now it's all about if we choose as a society to answer with love or death and loneliness. And the answer of love, the answer of solidarity, the answer of trying to be there for one another brings forth life.
That's right, and it's just so beautiful. The history of your country, the culture, how deep Catholicism is rooted in Polish history, law, and culture. Like, wow, it's absolutely incredible. And the gift of John Paul II to the church, the gift of resisting communism and the solidarity movement. You have so much richness. You had a lot of suffering in your own country of World War II and being invaded so many times, of fighting for existence among hostile neighbors. But your country is steeped in religious tradition. It's steeped in strong cultural religious values. And that's what makes Poland really, really beautiful, and also a big inspiration to other countries, especially as we're seeing, so many countries so secular in Europe that have apostatized from faith, that have relinquished faith, that have a generation of young people. They don't know their history, their culture, their values. If you can retain your values and your cultures and your customs, even in this country, and 40 Days for Life is a manifestation of faith in the public square, which many people are afraid to do and don't want to engage a secular, ugly culture, particularly if there's hundreds of aggressive pro-abortion marches attacking your churches. Most people feel quite intimidated by that and don't like the challenge. But some people are prayer warriors and really rise to that challenge. And Filip, what do you think? What message do you think Poland has that will benefit the pro-life movement in other countries? What's unique about Poland that other countries like Hungary, like France, Germany, Spain, Portugal, UK? What message do you have from Poland that would benefit the pro-life movement in other countries?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I always thought that Poland serves as an example of a country that can succeed economically, culturally, without an access to abortion. Because an argument is made very often that this is just a part of a civilizational package. And only after you accept the entire package, you can be a full member of a successful civilization. Without it, you will be backwards. Without it, you will be somehow left behind. But when you look at all the other, I would say, statistics and aspects of how Polish society functions, you will see that throughout the last 30 years, during which abortion was illegal, Poland still managed to develop so well, so greatly. It looks like abortion on demand is not really necessary in achieving that goal. I know that it sounds very obvious to all of us, but I think that many Poles are not even aware of that. That we actually don't really need that legal changes and cultural changes that are portrayed very often as absolutely necessary to live in a humane society. We don't really need these changes. We are actually able to find other answers. Of course, it's more demanding. We need to give our time, we need to give our money, we need to give our lives sometimes to take care for life that is in danger, that demands special care and attention. But it's still a way that can be taken. And I would say that Poland's role is to be this alternative that can always be referred to. You see, over there, they do not need abortion to have a healthy society. So why do we need an abortion on demand? Is it really necessary for us?
That's right. And to see example of a country that's really living the message in a tangible way, that is the message that, wow, your country stands out. It's unique. It is embodied the pro-life movement into its laws and customs. This is a message that resonates, that you can live without abortion on demand, that it's not something that benefits women's health. It doesn't benefit society. It wounds men and women. And it's an absolute, it's a scourge on society. And in Britain, we have a city the size of London that's missing from our country from the number of abortions that have happened in the last 50 years. And that's just mind-blowing when you think about it, of just how many lives have been lost, that how many talents, how many tragic moments have happened. We have this trauma, which is hidden underneath the surface. It's a taboo subject. Many people don't talk about it. They're too proud to share their personal experiences. But we have an incredibly rich mission field, and seeing the abortion debate from a perspective of hearts and minds, of souls, from a spiritual angle of saving lives, reaching out to others. This is how we embody the Christian message and sharing it with others. And how exciting the international sphere of the pro-life mission. Over so many countries, I'm so blessed to travel to different countries, meet different people. Everyone's perspective is absolutely unique. So, who knows? It might be that this Western civilization, which has embodied, the pro-abortion agenda for around 50 years now, suddenly that might just crumble very quickly. And we're seeing that in the United States, of how they've introduced, they've got rid of Roe versus Wade on the federal level, and now there's an abortion debate happening in every state. And you're not hearing this message in the media that so many states are becoming pro-life, and you're just hearing about these referendum which are being lost by the pro-life movement. But actually, the grassroots is really growing. So I think what's unique about Poland is that you can share a national pro-life perspective of a country that's working, that has pro-life laws, that can live without abortion. And sure, you do have, radical pro-abortion activists, but it shows you can win political battles. We've hardly won a political debate in Britain for decades. So to see you win like a national debate is absolutely phenomenal and really, really inspiring for me. And knowing there's many people just like yourselves on the grassroots who can rise up, that you can rise up and build a national campaign, a national movement. All these things are up for grabs. We've seen this happen in so many different countries, where like a national campaign has developed and it's captivated the imagination of young people, of elderly people, and that we can reach out one person at a time to individuals in the street. We can share the stories of others, and that we can bring hope, healing, and save lives as well on the local level. Zosia, what's the next step? So you've had this first campaign, and You've had a first campaign now. What's the next steps, and what's going to happen here from the next stages in Poland?
Well, we'll see where it takes us, where God leads us. For us here locally, since we haven't had the necessity to develop a lot of pro-life know-how on our own, and we are kind of caught by surprise with this sudden en masse change in the culture. Something very important is to bring pro-life know-how on how to make good pro-life apologetics from the West. So from people like you, from 40 Days for Life, and other speakers who are great in it, who have already spoken about it in very, as you mentioned, in very difficult circumstances. So what I think we just did was to translate or publish a book of a very good pro-life speaker, Stephanie Gray-Connors, on how to speak on abortion, Love Unleashes Life. We hope to bring more know-how, more books, more speakers from the West on the ground, just to be able to learn how to do it in a compelling way. That's the next goal, I'd say, the vision for our team at least. Definitely, we are looking forward to meeting 40 Days for Life leaders in participants during the next European conference. So this is for us surely it's going to be a source of inspiration, and we hope to make a tradition of these kind of workshops, pro-life workshops, which is rather a celebration of life that we had last year. Last year in June, we organized kind of a party conference, workshops and party. We called it Let's Celebrate Life Together. It was for the first anniversary of Roe v. Wade being overturned. And I believe this is something that we must remember in pro-life movement and all the other good movements. We are on the side of life. This is the joyful side. This is the beautiful side, and we need to celebrate it. Life is to be celebrated. And that's captivating for the people. Many people came. We hope more people will come with us just to celebrate life, and this is going to be part of our community building.
That's so awesome. And I think, there's so many good things that you can do, like building that. You've got a team of people, and, big change can happen with a group of volunteers, a small number of committed people. You can accomplish so much, whether it's translating books, as you mentioned, whether it's getting the workshops up and running, inspiring, empowering people one person at a time, and then suddenly you develop a national movement, and then people come from Krakow and from all towns all over Poland just will come out of the woodwork, and people put their hand up and say, right, I want to do something. And then suddenly just there's perspectives come out of nowhere. Just this last week, we've been in conversation with people in Jamaica, getting a new campaign going there. I've been in touch with somebody in Lebanon. The country's collapsing in Lebanon. They got bombs falling on the place. And yet, there's a Christian there, and 30% Christian there, and they want to retain their values and stay in the country and bring pro-life values to the country. So even in these countries, in Philippines as well, all of those countries, abortion is not legal, but there's so much of our mission that we can bring to life through apologetics, through workshops, through engaging with people. And, just looking at the size of the pro-abortion marches in Poland, there's hundreds of people that you can reach. And, we think, oh, well, it's a pro-life country. What could you do there? More than ever before, standing in public, standing in the streets, engaging with individuals in the streets. We had one volunteer in London, and he just humbly handed out leaflets for an hour, and 100 leaflets were handed out. Just one person can reach hundreds of people in an hour, let alone the post-abortive men and women. And I'm sure there's many post-abortive women in Poland who've had abortions abroad. So there's all these different dynamics and angles, and we need to go to these conferences to to get inspiration, to get hope, to have perspective, and then bring that inspiration and hope back home. And when we do that, then it's really, really exciting. And that's what I love about this mission. It's alive. It is, there's always something new. It's never boring. There's always something going on, and there's a way to expand, to grow, to find new people. And it brings me a lot of joy speaking to you in such a great country. Your country has such incredible values, and just thinking of what John Paul has done. I became a Catholic 20 years ago from the influence of John Paul II, reading his encyclical Faith and Reason, studying his life. It was an intellectual conversion for me from the head to the heart. So he was a huge gift to the church, and the faith of Polish people has been a gift to the world in that regard. So Filip, just some closing thoughts. We'll have to finish out in a few minutes. What was the most inspiring part of doing a 40 days campaign for you in Poland, and what was the highlight for you?
Well, I believe that my personal, very personal highlight was the feeling I had every time I came to the vigil, being tired or with a headache or discouraged because of other reasons. So not really in the mood for prayer, not really in the mood for standing somewhere. And yet, each and every time I was doing that, even when I was standing alone, because, for example, someone was about to join me in a moment and I was just standing alone in the rain, even then, I was feeling this God's presence coming and feeling me from the inside, so that all these negative emotions or even headache started going away, and giving place for peace, for joy, for enthusiasm, for energy. So I believe that God was not only using us, but also changing us and shaping us throughout the initiative. My personal experience that I would like to share. So I would like to encourage all who listen to give yourself a chance and try doing that and see what happens.
Yes, personal spiritual growth is a really incredible. It's not just the lives of others that we're impacting. God might be wanting to touch your heart first and foremost, and then when He's touched our hearts, then we can go and touch the hearts of other people. So that's strong spiritual growth. If you're there praying for hours, then inevitably your faith and your prayer life is going to grow like crazy, and that's what we've seen among so many different people. So Zosia, what are your closing thoughts? What was the highlight for you, and just some closing thoughts before we finish the podcast today?
I'd say from the moment I decided to get involved at least a little bit in the pro-life work and cause, I realized that kind of God is paying forward. Like, the graces in my life in all different spheres are just overwhelming. And definitely after the 40 Days for Life campaign, it was like, it feels like being flooded with grace. So I would say you should not hesitate, because really God takes a little bit of your effort and a little bit of your trust and just gives back in a way that is hard to describe, hard to even count. That was my experience, and that was experience of many people, actually everyone in our team. We were just overwhelmed with what happened to us, with the blessings in our personal lives as well.
That is awesome, and I absolutely love it, and that really embodies what 40 Days for Life is all about. It's like your whole team experienced that positive energy and positive experience from doing a campaign. And I just want to thank both of you, both Filip and Zosia. Thank you so much for your time. It's been really beautiful interviewing you today. And thank you for getting a new campaign started in a new country. And I look forward to hearing what God has in store for Poland, to continue hearing these grace-filled results. We'd love to come and do a workshop in your country again. and definitely get inspiration from other European and international campaigns where you are. So if you're a listener, do go to 40daysforlifeinternational.com. We've got a new podcast, we're getting a new magazine, getting more interviews, getting more campaigns in different countries around the world. So it's a really, for such a time as this is such a important and powerful time to be part of the pro-life movement, and 40 Days for Life is one of the best things that you can do, is being part of the pro-life movement, to go and campaign in public, stand and pray, save a life, get involved and pray and discern what your role is in this movement. So thank you so much indeed for everyone for listening. Thank you so much, Filip and Zosia, for being so wonderful guests. Thank you for the answers and the questions that you've had. It's been a real honor interviewing you today. And do subscribe to our podcast. May God bless you, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. God bless you all who listen and watch.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a privilege.
Thank you.
No te pierdas los podcasts de 40 días por la vida internacional con entrevistas, reportajes y testimonios de todo el mundo.
Don't miss our podcasts with interviews, news, and reports from around the world.